Hey everyone, welcome to Queerly Recommended, the podcast where we recommend the best in queer TV, film, fiction, and more. I'm Tara Scott. I review queer women's fiction at the Lesbian Review, Smart Bitches Trashy Books, and Lambda Literary.
And I'm Kris Bryant, a contemporary romance writer with almost 20 books about women loving women, and a new one coming out on May 1st called Forever.
Woo! I'm so excited about that one.
Yes, it's like a queer bachelorette story. Who doesn't want to read that?
I want to read it, and also I want it to be a TV show. TV, take note.
I know.
Make us a queer bachelorette,
I would
please.
love it. I would love it.
I know. If you would like to support our show, we have a Ko-fi link in the show notes. It's a site where people can go to support their favorite content creators like us. If you want, that's amazing. If not, that's okay too. You can even just tell a friend that you think needs another queer book or TV show or movie in their life. Now, Kris, I hear that congratulations are in order, except not for Kris Bryant, for Brit Ryder.
Yay, Brit Ryder! Yes, not me. Brit Ryder is a Foreword Indie finalist for Not Guilty.
That is amazing.
So that's exciting.
News.
I'm very excited.
Congratulations.
And I guess the winners will be announced in mid-June, I think is what they said.
And what category
so that is exciting.
Is Brit Ryder's Not Guilty nominated in?
So this is good. It's under LGBTQ+. So
it is
so
that.
There's a chance. Yeah, there's a chance. It's erotica, so I don't know, what the history is on awards given in that category for erotica or erotic romance. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping.
Yeah. I hope so too.
Yeah. And the Lammy nominations are out too,
yes.
This is always a fun time of year as all the awards start being shortlisted. And so Lesbian Romance had really great selections.
Mm-hmm.
We had Chemistry Lessons by Jay, Go Around by E.J. Knows, In the Long Run by Haley Cass, Red Tide at Huron Bay by Jerry Hill, and The Headmistress by Melina McKay.
Which Oh,
yes.
I love that book. It's so good. And the gay romance selections looks pretty good too. It's Best of the Wrong Reasons by Sander Santiago, Dublin Bay by John
Sander.
Patrick. Yeah, Sander is one of your fellow BSB authors.
Yes.
Excellent Sons, A Love Story in 3 Acts by Larry Benjamin, Floridian Nights by Lance Ringel. I hope I said that right. And The Other Man by Farhad J. Dediburyor, which I also hope I said right. Congratulations.
Yes. I'm so excited.
Right? It's a great slate. And there are many more categories up at the Lambda Literary website if you want to go and take a peruse through. These are just the categories that we're most excited about.
Right? Yes.
It's a pretty good time.
It is. So right now, though, it's listener question time.
Yes.
Which I miss because we don't always have listener questions. But we got a great question from Sheena at the Lesbian Review. I would like to know which film each of you would want to make queer if you could change one film.
All right.
So here's my film.
Okay.
Because I've seen it a zillion times, at least in my lifetime.
Yes.
While you were sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part 2,
okay.
But let's find out what's your question. Or, I'm sorry, what's your selection?
Okay,
your choice?
So I have one, and I just actually had another one spring to mind that I am so in love with that I'm going to give you both. Okay, so the first, because also to be fair, the first one was a bit of a cop-out. Ocean's 8! I would like Ocean's 8 to be overtly queer. Thank you very much.
Right!
It's so subtexty.
It's there, it's just not there.
Right,
yes.
Right, like the chemistry is there. It's super subtexty, especially around Sandra Bullock and Cate Blanchett's characters. And I'm sorry, just make them make out. That's all I want. If they could just make out and that's, ta-da, done. Wonderful. But, and this would also require a large overhauling of the script because it is an entirely problematic script. I'm going to say that. I know this. But what if Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, the 1950s musical.
Seven Sisters for Seven Sisters.
Yes. But queer. Make it gay. And I don't know, maybe some of them are brothers with brothers, and maybe
seven
some of them
brothers
are
for
sisters
seven
with
brothers.
sisters.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
but what if now? The problem with it, of course, is that all those women were kidnapped in that movie. And so there's no real, I would say the consent in it is dubious at best. So it would need a revision.
A complete overhaul of that. Right.
So that it's not rapey. But if we could do that.
Kidnappy, rapey,
Yeah, I would love to see it. I don't know. I mean, like, Moulin Rouge might be fun to see as queer as well.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Yeah.
So the follow-up question to that was our friend Kathy asked, who would you cast?
Yes.
And I have mine. I know mine.
Yes.
Like, mine, like, boom, came to me right away.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we're going to keep Sandra Bullock because, Sandra Bullock.
Follow-up question to the follow-up question. Is Sandra Bullock the same age that she is in the movie, or is she the same age she is now?
I'm going to keep her same age as she was in the movie.
Okay.
Because, it's always a comfort movie for me to go back and watch. And it's just, she was just so adorable in that movie.
Yeah.
I think now she looks very professional, very, I don't know what is that word? She's very mature and sexy.
She's gorgeous and sexy, but she's also in her 50s. Like, it's
right. Yeah.
been a long time.
Hey, for her. Right. So I'm going to go back with that because you're going to find out who my supporting cast is. Yes. And you're going to say, okay, this makes sense. Mm-hmm. So here's the deal. So Peter, who falls in the on the track and she saves Peter, she's really saving Ruby Rose.
Yes.
Kind of a, nice looking, but kind of a jerk, sort of, because when Peter comes awake, he's all about himself and he's very vain. And, this is stuff she doesn't know.
Yeah.
But then Peter's brother, who's really going to be Ruby's sister, that Sandra hooks up with in the end.
Yes.
Spoiler alert. It's going to be Anna Kendrick. Love her. And I think that age, because she's got to be early 40s? I don't know how old she is. Late
now?
30s? How old is Sandra?
I
don't know.
30s. We're going to look this up.
So, yeah, let's look it up. Because I think that cast would be perfect.
That would be super good. She was born in 1985. So
she's
late.
37 ish.
That could work.
36.
I think that would work.
Yeah, that would totally work. Yeah. So that's who I would cast.
Mm-hmm.
I would keep Sandra Bullock. Ruby Rose would be Peter, and then Anna Kendrick would be the love interest, the brother, the sister.
Yep, I love it.
Shit,
I love it.
What about you?
Well,
what about you?
So for Ocean's 8, I wouldn't change anything about the cast. I would just change some of the story. That's what I would do.
Okay.
And
yeah, who would you hook it up? Who would you hook up besides Sandra and Kate? Who else would you hook up there? Rihanna and Awkwafina. What are we doing?
I know. That's where I'm a little less sure.
Polly? Let's make it Polly.
Sarah Paulson?
No. Polyamorous.
Very different. Yeah, so
I'd be in on that.
I bet you could. I bet you would.
I totally would be in on that.
Uh-huh. I know. So I'm not totally sure because I do think Rihanna, but I think
she's so pretty.
But I think maybe with Mindy Kaling's character. I don't think we got to see enough of that character.
Yeah, we didn't get to see enough of either one of them, but I feel like Mindy was too Rihanna's super laid back and chill, and I think Mindy was too focused, too nervous. Like a little
but I think that's also why you can't put Mindy Kaling with Sarah Paulson's character either. But I don't think Rihanna would fit with Sarah Paulson's character. Actually, no. Awkwafina and Sarah Paulson's character would be hilarious, especially given that Awkwafina is a thief and Sarah Paulson's character is probably also a thief given her garage.
That's true.
At a minimum, they would become business partners, I think.
Right.
But maybe.
But wait, you just might have your cast now for your next movie.
Yes!
We just casted it.
And then throw in Kristen Stewart, because, I don't know.
No!
Yes.
No! No!
Yes, she was wonderful in Happiest Season.
But that's the only thing she's ever been good at. Sorry, everybody. I'm not a Kristen Stewart fan.
To be fair, I feel like she is one of the most polarizing actors for queer women. Her and Ruby Rose together. And actually, she and Ruby Rose could fall for each other in Seven Sisters for Seven Sisters.
There's truth to this. I feel like she plays the same character in every single movie. It's kind of like...
Julia Roberts?
Who else?
Julia Roberts.
Come on. Look at you, Julia Roberts. No!
Yes.
She's not. She does better. She is more of a character actor than Kristen Stewart is.
Except they keep writing the character Julia Roberts.
But let me tell you, I'm about ready to drop a movie today as my official recommendation where she's in it and she doesn't play any of the people she's played in the past. Boom.
Okay, so you have one exception. Just like Kristen Stewart.
No, let's think about this. So Julia Roberts, of course, she did Pretty Woman. Everybody knows her from that. And Steel Magnolias. Yeah. And The Pelican Brief. I mean, are you not seeing they're different people? Erin Brockovich.
Now you're naming ones that I haven't watched.
You're talking to the movie buff here who sees and watches it all. And I call bullshit on that. So
that's fair. You've seen more of her movies than I have. That's a fair statement.
I've pretty much Eat, Pray, Love. I've seen like almost all of her
You saw
movies.
Eat, Pray, Love on purpose?
I did on purpose.
Did you read the book?
I did not read the book.
Okay.
But I saw the movie. And I'm sure, it's one of those where I'm sure that the book was 9,000 times better than the movie because the movie was kind of slow. Mm-hmm. But it had a nice message. And I think that came across on the movie.
Yeah, it's not very often that you get that kind of a book turned into a movie or a TV show or something like that, where it's nonfiction, sort of memoir, but sort of also topical. The only other thing I can think of is the TV show Shrill, which was adapted from Lindy West's book. Have you ever watched that?
No.
Okay, go watch it. And then come back.
Okay.
Only if you feel like it. But you watch everything, so I'm a little surprised you haven't watched it because you've
I
seen everything else.
I do watch everything.
See, which means you have time. There's nothing left for you to watch. Now you got. Now you can.
I know. I've watched everything, so now it's time.
Yeah.
Yes. What about you? What have you been watching?
Well, we haven't talked about what you've been reading or watching.
Oh, shit. Sorry.
All right.
I'm all excited. We're talking about movies.
Right?
Yes.
So, Kris, what have you been reading or watching?
I have been watching because I have had a lot of book things due. Like edits were due, page proofs were due. So I didn't really have a lot of time to read.
Yeah.
So I have been watching movies because they're quick. Mm-hmm. And also I started American Survivor, which I have to say, I'm so tired of it. I love the Australian version so much more. And I am absolutely angry at Paramount Plus for pulling all the seasons. Like, you can't watch Australian Survivor, and it has something to do with, because they have a season going right now, which of course we can't see. So, like, literally I was watching this one season, and we were down to like the final 6 or 5, and they pulled the whole season.
That's not right.
And it's so hard for me not to go online and find out who wins. Because I want to know, but at the same time, I want to watch it because I think that is such a better show than the American version.
There's got to be a sketchy site where you can watch it online.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that. Look at you.
But emphasis on sketchy. I can't guarantee that it won't install some bullshit on your computer.
Right. That's the last thing I need.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I've been watching a lot of movies, and I had my parents, they came by, and we watched 2 movies back to back. Okay. Watched one for my mom, one for my dad. Okay. And it ended up, like, we cried at all of us cried on the movie Dog with Channing Tatum.
I don't think I know this one.
Yeah, it's basically, it's a soldier, a canine soldier, who Channing Tatum has been asked to take this dog, to transport this dog to his handler's funeral. Like, I think it's in New Mexico or something. And so this dog is like out of control, has issues, not crazy, but just like has anxiety, severe anxiety and separation, just the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And because it was military, my father's military, like the whole thing, we're all bawling. So we watched that, and then we watched this movie, Liam Neeson, because I'll watch anything that he's in. Mm-hmm. We watched that. And then last night, get this, I watched Spider-Man, the new one, No Way Home, and it was super good. I really liked it. And it was like 2.5 hours long.
That's a long movie. Neil really liked it too.
Yeah, it was great. I didn't have a single problem with it. I know maybe some people didn't like the ending. I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I thought the whole thing was great. I highly recommend it.
Good.
That is what I've been watching. What about you?
All right. So I've been doing some watching and I've been doing some reading. And the first thing that I watched, because I heard so many people talking about it, was The Tinder Swindler, which is bananas. Have you seen it?
Yes.
Oh.
First of all.
Yeah.
Can we talk about what's wrong with that?
Yes. Yes.
So first date, I'm going to fly you somewhere. No, you're going to fly me to some island and sell me to trafficking, or
leave me for dead.
Me.
Yeah.
Right. Or you're going to leave me for dead. So my answer there is no. Mm-mm. If anybody on Tinder wants to take me or fly me somewhere, that's an automatic no.
No, I am showing this movie to my kids when they are in their teens to say,
yes,
don't do any of this. None of this. Right. Don't go with anybody like this. Don't go anywhere. Don't hop on a flight. Yeah. No, like that whole thing for me was so fascinating and so bonkers all at the same time. And like, I can't imagine, there are very few people in my life that I can imagine giving $30,000 to.
Right. First of all, who the fuck do I know has $30,000 just to give to somebody?
But also these women didn't, for the most part, have it, and we're just taking out like loans after loans, and like, how do you not, especially when it gets to the point where like that one girlfriend and he's berating her and he's like, you need to make this right, and he's taking them out every single day. Like, at what point do you stop and say, what is happening here? Who are you? I can't do this anymore. And it's like, I don't understand. I don't understand the psychology around that. Is it almost like a sunk cost fallacy where you're like, well, but I've already put in this much and I can't let these horrible things happen to him? Or like, I don't know. But that was fascinating and terrifying all at the same time. And the fact that he gets to just continue like walking around free, people know that he's like this, and he's possibly continuing to do the same thing, is disgusting. I hope he chokes a little bit on his food every single day for the rest of his life. Every meal.
Well,
just a,
you know,
just a,
I get very upset with women who fall for this. I feel like we've come so far. We know how people are. There are enough shows out there like Catfish, and if there are warning bells going off in your head about anything, you walk away. Remember last time we talked, or whenever it was, we talked about the stripper who wanted me to co-sign on the furniture loan.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like in my 20s, and I was like warning bells and everything, and I'm like 25 or 24. I'm like, hell no. Like, I know what you're doing. Yeah. So I don't care. Like, if somebody says to me, like, and we've only been dating like a month, hey, I need you to wire me $10,000. I'll send it right back. I'll be like, bye. Like, bye.
Although,
I know this is big.
No,
we're older. No, we're older, and I think we have more experience. But like I said, even though when I was in my 20s, I knew that was wrong. And it's like, what is that? Is that because my parents, like, I know it's my personality, but like maybe my parents took more interest in how I was molded as a child and how relationships are built. And, you know, maybe these women didn't have that. I don't know. I don't know what makes somebody okay and do that. I don't understand.
I think the thing, too, is that, like, we got 3 of the stories of people who were his victims. And we heard that there were more. But what we didn't hear is that there were probably many, 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 many more women who he tried to connect with and start something, who were like, fuck off, you greasy weird ass dude. What are you even doing? So yeah, that was interesting and terrifying all at the same time, because I just kept thinking about my kids, and I was like, oh.
Right. You don't want them to do that.
Never. No, thank you. And actually, the one of the 3 stories that made the most sense to me was the friend, because the one who, like, she was never romantically involved with him. She's like, I don't think this is right, but okay, we'll be friends, we'll hang out. And that's where I felt like it was almost even more insidious, because he's like building this pattern of behavior and showing it and laying all the groundwork, and frankly laying more of the groundwork than he did with the girlfriends, of like, we're going to travel together, we're going to go to clubs together, we're going to do, like, they spent a lot of time together before asking for money for the first time. And so for her, all she's thinking is, oh, this is my really good friend. But even then, like, I don't know. I have friends that have been in my life for years. And the trouble has to be real big before I'm going to dip into my investments to help somebody out with something.
Right. It's like, I mean, I'll give you $100 if you need it.
Right?
500 maybe.
Oh my God.
But when we're talking 10,000, I mean, I trust you.
Sure.
I mean, I guess maybe I would you. For sure. I would give you 10 grand if I had it. I would say, hey,
don't give me 10 grand.
I'll give you 10 grand. Well, if you needed it, I would be there for you.
Sure.
But, it's just, that blows my mind. Like, that blows my mind. And I know it's because I'm older and I've had more life experiences. I mean, maybe not to their extreme where I've dated somebody and they've flown me to Paris for, like, lunch or dinner or something. And then, we took, like, some Lamborghini down the Italian sideline or something,
Well, and I think, too, like, we're also at the point in our lives where neither of us is nearly old enough to retire yet, but we are certainly old enough to think about the fact that we would like to retire someday. And so it's almost like that's factoring into versus someone who's in their mid-20s who's like, retire? I want to go out to this, like, bougie place for dinner. Like, who cares about retire?
Right.
So,
right.
Equally bonkers. But on a completely different note, and also on Netflix, I also started watching season 2 of Love is Blind.
Oh my God. So you're not done?
No, I'm not done. I'm on episode 7. Everybody's meeting the families. This show, I gotta say, I do like this season better than last season.
Oh, I like the first season better.
Oh, did you? Well, I mean, I like them both, but I mean, in both cases, there's people that are just like hot walking messes. And
how do they get picked? Like, how do these?
No
what?
idea.
Like, how do they get picked? And there's so many people that we don't even see.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wish that you were finished with it because we could talk about, like, the aftermath and the after the show.
Well, so once my phone figured out that I was watching Love is Blind, it started sending me a bunch of articles about it. So I already know, like, who's together by the end of it, who breaks up by the end of it. Like, I've had basically all the big spoilers, and I'm okay with that. Because at this point, it's mostly, I'm just enjoying the drama. I think for me, though, I have the most fun watching the episodes when they're actually in the pods.
Mm-hmm.
Because in some cases, and I recognize that we're seeing, like, maybe 15, 20 minutes per couple.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
Of what could be dozens of hours.
Yeah. It's 2 weeks.
Yeah. Like, it's 2 weeks, but, like, they could be spending many, many hours in the pod talking to someone who they, end up choosing. But to me, it feels like 2 minutes. So I personally find it a little bit hilarious with some of the, like, I just love you more than I've loved anybody in my whole life. And I'm like, do you? Or are you in a high control situation where you know that you're on TV and the stakes are high and, like, do you feel this? Because, like, I'm sorry, but some of these couples make no fucking sense whatsoever. Like, for me, right from the get-go, Natalie and Shane, I think, are just the funniest, stupidest. Why?
Right.
Why?
Okay.
Like, he's like a selfish meathead man baby. And she is this, like, brilliant, accomplished, awful. And I could almost...
She's mean as fuck.
She is mean.
She is mean. Like, she's, like, good for her. Kudos for being successful and professional and all that stuff. But she's an asshole. And, like, there's a certain time where you can tease somebody.
Yeah.
Yes. But really, if it's somebody you're just meeting and you're trying to get to know them, I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Don't be an asshole 24/7.
No.
Like, I have to kind of side with him on that respect. I can't even tell... we can't even talk because you haven't gotten to the one episode, so I can't even talk about this anymore.
Man. I'm just saying, like, those two, like, why? No, those two should never have... He should have just stuck with Sheena. They actually probably would have been a better... They have met up again at the point at which I am. And she... I guess my thing is, like, if her... I'm going to just apologize to all the people who haven't watched Love is Blind yet, I guess, who are probably like, why are they talking about this? Skip ahead a couple minutes. But, like, if her faith is so important to her that Kyle was a problem. How would Shane not be a problem?
Do we not know?
She wants a strong Christian man who can lead her and guide her. And I am sorry, Shane might have some faith, but he is not what she is looking for. I grew up in that tradition. I was a part of that tradition that she's talking about for more than 30 years. He is not. Why does she think he's it? He's not.
So I would like to point out that it has come out since then that Natalie was actually proposed to by 5 other people. Yeah, the people who don't make it on the show, so she's had 5 proposals. Yeah. And so it's kind of funny because they show, like you can go online and find it, but you can't go online. You have to finish the series first. Because, like, some shit goes down, and I want you to, like, I want your reactions to be organic and to see it when it happens, because it's fascinating.
I did hear that Kyle
and then we'll talk.
I heard Kyle said he regretted not proposing to Deep Tea, and I think they would have been real cute. And I mean, according to all
and I'm sitting here smiling because I know what happens.
Well, but have they actually confirmed it? Are they actually together? Because the last I've seen, it's unconfirmed.
No, but I know who he is with. And that's me covering my mouth. And don't you look, because I know you like to look.
Well, I know there's questions about Natalie and Sal, whether they're together now.
Yeah. You'll just have to see.
All right, anyway, we got to move on past this. Oh my God, we spent way too much time on the Tinder Swindler and Love is Blind. Okay, the next one, real quick. Okay, everybody knows that I love the headmistress. Not only did I just say it like 15 minutes ago, but also it was my official recommendation. The audiobook is out. It is performed by the incredible Abby Craden, who I adore as a narrator. And I've been listening to that. It's so good. I finished it yesterday and it's just superb. I don't know how Abby Craden does it, because like just all the different voices, they're differentiated so well. Like they are absolutely different characters. I enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time, even knowing what the twist was going to be. I think I might have enjoyed it a little bit more because that twist was like a whew. The first time I listened to it, I was not prepared for that. So yes, if you're looking for your next audiobook, get that. And then I also recently finished a book that I quite enjoyed by Kat Jackson, and it's called The Roads Left Behind Us. It will be out by the time this podcast airs. It's out on March 22nd from Bella Books. And so the premise is that it is a romance between, there is a grad student, like someone who's starting her PhD program, but she's kind of like, she's been out of academia for a little while. She's going back to get her PhD in literature after, taking a break for a bit. So she's 34, I think. And she is going back to the same school where she got her undergrad and her master's degree. She's actually since then become really, really good friends with one of the professors. And there is another professor who is new to the school, but is 50. I'm assuming they gave her tenure with the way they brought her in, and is kind of, so the blurb made me think that she would be an ice queen. And I actually don't think she's an ice queen. I think she's just like a somewhat private person, and she runs hot and cold with the other character. And so it's kind of just the like, how do they navigate a relationship in academia? I really enjoyed it. I had a really, really, really good time with this book. I read it over the course of, I think, 2 or 3 days. And finishing it kept me up a little past my bedtime, which is something that not a lot of books always do for me anymore. So I was quite impressed by that. My only thing with it, actually, before I say that, backing up. So I actually have a master's in English too. And so what I liked about reading this is that it made me think about that time, and like I could picture the room where the grad students had their office, and I could picture the gatherings that would happen with the faculty and the TAs. And like, it just really brought me back to that, which I really, really enjoyed. I thought the chemistry was really good. That worked for me. The only thing that didn't quite work for me is, so like I mentioned, the professor, like she runs really hot and cold with the grad student love interest. And that ends up ultimately driving kind of the big breakup conflict, which I don't think is giving away a lot, because most romances involve a breakup at some point. Not all, but most do. And when they get back together, I felt like I didn't really know why. The grad student is the one that the whole story is, like, the whole story is told from her perspective. But it's the professor who goes on the big emotional journey. And I think if she had, if the professor had better articulated why her change of heart came about, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. And for sure, like, hands down, it would have been an official recommendation. I still, like, honestly, I still say go out and read it. It's great. I had a fun time with it. It left me wanting a little bit more in that area. So, Kris. Yes. Speaking of official recommendations, what's yours this week?
So I'm going to cheat.
What?
I'm cheating. I actually kind of have two this week.
All right.
And they kind of go hand in hand. Okay. So that's kind of why I started off with, like, I went down the rabbit hole yesterday, the queer rabbit hole.
Sure.
And I picked the movie The Normal Heart. And lately I've been into documentaries and historical movies and shows that, and not really shows, but just like documentaries and stuff that happen in past, I don't know. I'm into this thing right now. And so I came across this movie and I'd never heard about it. It's from 2014 and it has an amazing cast and that's what drew me in. So the movie itself is the story of the onset of the HIV/AIDS crisis in New York City in the early 1980s. Basically, it talks about the nation's sexual politics and gay activists and how to bring about light, how to bring AIDS to the forefront in the early 80s when it first came about. So the cast, great cast. Listen to this cast. We have Mark Ruffalo, Taylor Kitsch, I think is how you pronounce his name, Kitsch?
I don't know.
Super cute boy. Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. Julia Roberts. And Matt, I think it's Bomer, how you pronounce it? So very attractive people are in this movie. So basically what happens is something that they called gay cancer was spreading in the queer community in the early 1980s. And the government, state and federal, weren't acknowledging it. And it was because it was happening only with gay males. And so nobody was talking about it. And so basically it was the struggle of this group of gay men in New York City. They were trying to get in with the mayor. They were trying to get in, anywhere that they could to get funding. And Julia Roberts is the doctor who is the first doctor to, like, take care of the AIDS patients. But this is before they really knew it was AIDS. And so it kind of goes about, you learn about the hardships of it and how fast it was. Back then they didn't know how to treat it or anything. And the minute you got the signs of it, you were dead within a couple months, basically is how it was. Nowadays there's a lot of medications. And if somebody does ever catch AIDS, they can live a longer life with the medications that are available. So, but like I remember, I was young at the time, very young, very, very young at the time.
A toddler.
And I was a toddler, yeah. And so I remember, like, Ronald Reagan would not talk about AIDS. And it took him 4 years. It was in 1985 when he finally actually said it out loud in public. And during this time, thousands, tens of thousands of people were dying from it, and they would not acknowledge it. And so I didn't know anything about it. I knew that, like, my sister's friends and, my sister's older. She's 4 years older. And safe sex came about because of this. Prior to this, it was like, I don't want to get pregnant, but then it became, I don't want to catch AIDS. And it wasn't really talked about ever. And the first time I really heard about it was I was watching a show, and I don't remember, I think it might have been, I don't know, one of the late night shows with my dad. And Steven Seagal, like Biggest Loser, he was on there talking about AIDS. And he's like, AIDS was man-made, because they were saying it, it came from chimpanzees, I think, or primates in Africa. And he's like, nope, it was man-made, designed to kill the gays. So that was my introduction to AIDS when I was a child. Like, that is what I heard. And so I know that there have been a lot of movies about AIDS and the start of it, like Gia. I watched Gia not too long ago. It was a fantastic movie, which I'm at some point will probably be a recommendation if I didn't already recommend it. But it's important to understand everything about being queer, the history of it, how you really do have a voice and how it's important to use your voice. And people do listen. It might take a long time to get there, but when you have your friends dying, I mean, it was such a big thing. And I think that it's not something that we should forget about the struggles, about this. So so as all this is going on, so I'm watching this, and then I see, I don't know how I saw it, but The Nuclear Family on HBO. Like, I went straight into that show.
Yeah.
And so that's like a 3-part miniseries, and it kind of deals with it too, but it's like the first generation of lesbian moms in America. And so this girl, I say this girl, it's a woman, she's like 40 now. And so she does this documentary about her family's history because she has 2 moms, and she's like one of the first Americans without parents, 2 moms, and how that came about. So she wanted to know, she has a sister, and they have different dads. And so she wanted to find out what the history was, how she came about. And her father, the sperm donor, literally sperm donor only, was a gay man, and he had AIDS. So like this whole thing like was going on. It takes place in about the same time. Yeah. And this case like it was in like the court system for like 4 years. Yeah, because the guy wanted custody of his kid. He wanted to have some sort of paternal responsibility, and the moms didn't want that because, the whole idea was they just needed a sperm to have a baby, and he was welcomed into their lives, but he just wasn't, they didn't want to give him the parental right to say, oh, you can't take this child here, you can't do this with her, she can't go to this doctor, and it really messed her up, messed the kid up because of this huge, I think it started when she was 9. No, maybe, I don't remember. But it started when she was real young. But there's a lot of old home movies where she's like with her dad, and the dad would come over and play with them all, and her sister. And so I was so fascinated by that. And then, so they ended up winning the case. The moms got to keep full custody of their daughter. And eventually, and in this case, the father lasted. He was taking the drug, the AIDS drug. So his life I'm trying to think, he lived, like not quite 10 years after he was diagnosed.
Oh, wow.
Maybe about 10 years, yeah. So basically, after the trial, she had such a bad taste in her mouth about this whole thing, so she never talked to her dad again until he was dying. And he called and said he's dying of AIDS, and would she take the call and talk to him? And so it was just a really fascinating story to be one of the first families with, where this has happened. And let me tell you something. I am friends with people who today are having children. Women, lesbians who are having children, and one of them has to adopt their own kid. So it hasn't come far. We have not come far. Yeah, it's amazing. And not in a good way. So anyway, so that's what I did. So I went down this whole 80s, late 70s, 80s, back. That was kind of what I was watching. So, anyway, it was heavy, but it was still good to know the history. And also, the thing that I found fascinating was we have documentaries and home movies of, the first level of lesbian moms.
That is super interesting, and it sounds really, really good.
It really is. And they showed them on talk shows. And the people in the audience are just assholes. Like, oh no, it should be a man and a woman as a family, and this is, goes against God, and like that kind of stuff. I want to find those people now. I want to talk to those people now, just to see where they're at in their beliefs now.
Well, yeah, right? Has it changed at all? Well, it probably depends on who they are. Unfortunately, I mean, there are some people, a lot of people out there who are still bigots. It just feels like such a weird time.
It really does. And I thought we'd be so much more forward and progressive now, but thanks to who, we were set back quite a bit. Yeah. So yeah, it's still an uphill climb. Anyway, so that was my my recommendation, the 2-for-1. What about you? What is your official recommendation?
Okay, so I thought I was going to recommend something, and I will next time.
Okay.
Next time. So stay tuned. I have a great book I'm going to recommend next time. But as you were talking about those 2 films, it made me think about an audiobook that I recently finished that I think is absolutely worth calling attention to, especially if you are interested in our queer ancestors and getting their stories. And so my official recommendation is Desert of the Heart by Jane Rule. I have kind of a funny relationship with Jane Rule. It's very, very fond, but most of the time when people were asking me, especially back on like old, when the Lesbian Review had the podcast channel going and I was on podcasts with Sheena and whatever, and I would get asked like, okay, what's the first lesfic you ever read? And I would always say, and Playing the Role of Herself by K.E. Lang, because that was what I remembered. And to be fair, that was the book that pulled me into the lesfic scene. That was the book that helped me understand that, like, oh, okay, there's a community here. There's a really active, like an incredibly active community where like books are being created all the time and all that. And the thing that I forgot for probably a few years is that when I was in university, I came across Jane Rule. So when I was doing my master's degree, I was at a university in Kingston, Ontario, which is this like gorgeous historical town in Ontario, really kind of rich history in Canada. And they had incredible used bookstores, like just absolutely incredible used bookstores, which makes sense given that it's a relatively small city that has one of the best universities in Canada. And so, you know, it's like students and professors that are all like going in and turning over book collections. And I came across Jane Rule and went, huh, and just like picked up some of her books. And at the time, I mean, this is when I still thought I was straight too, but I was like really drawn to these books and I didn't know why, which of course now I'm like, it's because you're queer, you dumbass. There's something here. But Desert of the Heart was actually Jane Rule's first novel. It was turned into the film Desert Hearts, which I haven't seen, but I've heard is quite...
That's a long time ago,
It's a long time ago. And I think it's actually quite different. Like, it's the source material, but I think whoever wrote the script, like, changed it up quite a bit. And when it was released in 1964, homosexuality was still illegal across the United States. This was still like 4 or 5 years before the Stonewall riots even happened. And it takes place in the 1950s. Evelyn Hall is the main character, and she goes to Reno, Nevada. She has to be there for 6 weeks because she needs to get a divorce. She and her husband have been together for more than a decade. They are not happy. She knows, you know, things are not okay. He didn't come back the same after the war, blah, blah, blah. And Reno, was the only place where you could get a relatively painless divorce. And so she has to stay there at a boarding house for 6 weeks. And while she's staying there, she meets Anne Childs. Anne's stepmother runs the boarding house. Anne is 15 years younger than Evelyn, and she works at a local casino. She is bisexual. She has been with, like, I think he was her manager at the casino, had been a boyfriend. She's currently sleeping with her best friend, Silver, who is actually going to be marrying some other man soon. And, you know, Anna's pretty happy with her life there. She doesn't need to work. She has a big inheritance from her dad, but she kind of likes to, and so that's where she works. And Evelyn just thinks she's coming to Reno for a divorce, but they actually do end up finding, you know, Anne and Evelyn find that they're attracted to each other and decide to explore it. And at the end of it, they kind of have to make a decision because Evelyn's 6 weeks are up. So are they going to go their separate ways, or are they going to start a life together somewhere? You know, are they going to go back where Evelyn's from in California because she's actually an English professor? Are they going to stay in Reno? Anne has enough money to buy a house. They don't know. But I think this book is so important. It's so interesting. And for me, reading it felt kind of like I was cracking open a time capsule, which was amazing. Like I said, it was released in 1964. It was released at this time when it's not, like, it's not okay to be gay. It's not even legal to be gay. And I think the reason she was even able to release this book is that while Jane Rule was born in the United States, she was living in Canada at the time. And she was a professor at UBC, the University of British Columbia. And it was interesting when I recently submitted a review for this to the Lesbian Review. So I guess keep your eyes peeled for that. It might be out by the time this airs or will be soon. But I was kind of going and doing some digging because I finished it and it's one of those books where I guess you can just talk about the book, but for me, I really wanted to see what was its cultural importance? What did it do at the time? It came out at around the same time that Anne Bannon was releasing books in the States, but her books were all pulps, right? Like she and what she did with the pulps were incredible, and they were important, and her books are so raw and wonderful. And again, definitely go read those, except maybe skip the one that's really fucking rough, because there's one that's really rough right in the middle. But if you want, like, read Odd Girl Out, read Beebo Brinker, those two, not rough at all, those are fine. But Jane Rule became the most famous lesbian in Canada because of this book. And much like what happened with Odd Girl Out and Anne Bannon, Jane Rule ended up with thousands of women writing to her, basically saying, I didn't know it wasn't just me. I thought I was alone. I didn't know there were other people like this. I've been having feelings like this, but I didn't know it was an option to do anything with it. And so I think it's one of those incredibly important books, especially right now, like especially with what you and I were just saying too, before I even started talking about this book. We're in such a weird time where we came so far, especially, in the North America or in the West, we came so far with rights for LGBTQ people, and the way we're sliding back is infuriating and scary. But also, we have these examples of people who came before us who fought really, really hard to get all that progress. And so I think for me, what's heartening is seeing that boldness and being unafraid to, or maybe she was afraid, but she did it anyway. Like, she still wrote the book and she still put it out there, and she lived openly queer with her partner on, I think it was on Vancouver Island for like, I don't know, however many decades. And so I absolutely recommend it. And also, it was just interesting because it made me want to learn more about that time period. So just as one example, like, I didn't know about, I knew that divorce was hard to get, but I didn't know that because Reno was the only place in the US where it was relatively quick and easy to get a divorce, there was actually a cottage industry around it. So, there would be boarding houses. There had to be places where people could come and they could stay. And because you had to prove that you were a permanent resident in Reno to get a divorce. And the way to do that is you had to have been there for at least 6 weeks. And so these people would set up places where people from out of town could come. They could stay for 6 weeks. They could say, yep, this is where I live. This is my permanent address. Get their divorce, hop on a plane, and get the fuck out of Reno. Which I thought was so interesting.
That is.
So, yes.
Yeah, history. Our history is both, it's sad and it's also incredible.
It is. It is. And I think history is being made again right now. We need to, a lot of people are speaking up and they are pushing back against the laws in Texas around what's happening with trans kids and how parents that affirm their children's gender are abusing them. I hope that pushback does something big. Or the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida.
Right.
Again, I hope that pushback does something big. And if we want to find, well, how do we do that? Look to the past. Look to the people that did it before. It's been done before. It can be done again. But we all have to do it. We all have to take part.
I was out with some friends on Friday night celebrating a birthday, and we all decided that if shit goes down, we're all moving to Finland.
Well, yeah,
not really,
Canada's
but
not
it's
safe
just
anymore.
I know. It's like, what is safe? Where can we go?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's kind of a joke, but it's a sad joke.
Yeah,
like we can't even be safe and comfortable in our own country, and that's sad.
It is.
Stuff like that. Nowadays, like when I was like in my early 20s, I kind of felt I didn't come out till later in life. Later being like mid-20s. I wasn't queer in high school. I was, but I didn't know that.
Yeah, you weren't out.
And it's funny because the signs, I remember there was a girl. She was 2 years younger. I was a senior and she was a sophomore. And I was on newspaper, and for some reason, somebody took a picture of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked the dark room because I was on newspaper, and then they were on yearbook staff. And so there was this picture of her, and and they had it up there in the dark room, and it was just such a really just a beautiful picture of just the scene itself of her up against a locker. And I just thought, oh, I just think she's pretty because she's pretty. It wasn't, I didn't understand the tingling, because I was a teenager and I tingled at everything.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit late, and I didn't know that it was okay to rise against this whole, pushback against queers. I didn't know at the time that how important it was for me to be out and speak my truth.
Yeah.
I hid forever. I say forever. It felt like forever. So it's important for people now to know the history, that it really wasn't that long ago that queers were in the closet, even though we've been around forever. It's just, so we need to open the door more and more and more and search for the equality. And it's so disheartening what has happened here in the United States just in the last 6 months.
Yes.
For our queer people and our queer kids, and it's just sad.
Yeah.
But I told you last night, I'm ready to pick it. I'm ready to go somewhere and hold up signs and use my voice.
And honestly, the most important thing, yes, absolutely, pick it, donate to the appropriate organizations, but also don't forget to vote. Vote in every single election and pay attention to previous voting records of politicians. I mean, don't you all have another, not presidential election, but don't you all have another election later this year?
2022, yes.
It's the midterms this year.
Midterms, yeah.
So now is the time. Go out and research who is going to be running, and this is kind of one of those do or die elections. Go do the thing.
Yeah, because 2 years ago, everybody did the thing, and it was good, and then it got bad. So I'm very upset with just our political system here. It's just not working for me. So it's not working for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And so there was a poll, a GCLS poll, a Golden Crown Literary Society poll on where you wanted, you being a member, anybody, voting for 2025. And they gave 3 options. One was Seattle, one was, I think, Austin, Texas, and the other one was Boston. And I'm like, fuck Texas. They're not getting our money, which is, Austin's probably the only blue speck in all of Texas, maybe Dallas. But still, I mean, it's just like, I don't want to drive through Texas. I don't even want to be around it. I know, it's
so tough because it's on the one hand, and I think businesses should also be choosing to boycott Texas, and the film industry should not be filming in Texas. But also, I mean, fuck Disney, given anyway.
Right.
But how do you continue to support the queer people that are in Texas while sending a strong message to the government there?
That's true.
And I don't know what the answer is there.
I don't either.
Well,
tell us.
Read Desert of the Heart. That's not the answer, but do it anyway. That's my official recommendation. Read Desert of the Heart and prepare to get out and vote and mobilize the people around you to get out and vote when the midterms roll around if you are in the U.S. And if you are outside of the U.S., I don't know, send a message to somebody you love in the U.S.
Right.
To encourage them and try to make some good trouble where you are if rights are changing. That is all for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Just hit that little subscribe button so that you can be notified whenever we release an episode every other Tuesday. If you have a friend that you think would like the show, please tell them about it. We'd love to connect with more listeners. And as always, if you'd like to support us, there is the Ko-fi link in our show notes. Never necessary, always appreciated.
Or if you want to connect with us on your favorite social media sites, just search for Queerly Recommended on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at podcast@queerlyrecommended.com. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.